was the greatest company in the world for 15 years, many years ago, 80 years ago. And we didn't want to see that leave. And it wouldn't actually leave, but the concept, psychologically not good. Nissan's going to be doing something very exciting about U.S. Steel. They'll be looking at an investment rather than a purchase. We didn't like the idea. U.S. Steel is a very important company to us. So they've agreed to invest heavily in U.S. Steel as opposed to own it. And that sounds very exciting. And we're going to meet with Nissan.
What do a steel company, a car manufacturer, and the former president of the United States have in common? If you said total confusion, you're on the right track. Donald Trump just turned Nippon Steel into Nissan in a public announcement, reigniting debates about his grasp on global affairs. But why does this embarrassing gaffe matter more than just a headline? Stick around to uncover how this seemingly small slip-up hints at a much bigger, alarming problem. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
You announced on Friday about U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel.
Yeah.
What will the ownership structure look like? What made you satisfied about that?
It'll be controlled by the United States, and the others, I understand, are in concurrence, and they asked that I do it. Everybody seems to want it, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the final is, but they're going to invest billions of dollars in steel. Otherwise, I wouldn't make the deal. I went to the unions, to all of the local unions. They all wanted it, and I'm doing it because all of the congressmen came in, about 5 of them.
Did anyone else catch Trump's latest verbal train wreck? During a recent speech, he managed to confuse Nippon Steel, a major Japanese steel manufacturer, with Nissan, the car company. He confidently declared that Nissan was building a new steel plant in the U.S., whipping out a statement so wrong you could practically hear fact-checkers frantically typing. And like most Trump gaffes, it quickly went viral, flooding social media with reactions ranging from laughter to facepalms. You'd think for someone who brags endlessly about making deals, he'd at least know the difference between a car and, I don't know, steel. Now, before dismissing this as another run-of-the-mill Trumpism, let's unpack why it actually matters.
It was still, as much as it was billions and billions of dollars, but it was a small part of it. But we're going to have the strongest military by far. We have great people. I want to congratulate Pete Hegseth for having gone through the gauntlet. He went through a lot. Don't mind spending so much money on the military because we build it here. It's made in the USA, all made in the USA. We have, I rebuilt our military during my first term. Did a great job. We left some of it behind in Afghanistan, stupidly. There was no reason for that, but he got through, and he's going to be a tremendous, I have no doubt he's going to be a tremendous leader. And other of the leaders sitting here, they're in their own fields. We're going to do something very, very, very great.
Sure, it's a funny headline. Twitter had a field day calling him Nippon Trump and joking he might think sushi is just Japanese nachos. But this isn't just harmless word salad. It's a glaring example of how little attention he pays to the details. Mistakes like these aren't just slip-ups. They reflect carelessness, even laziness, when addressing issues with international importance. Global leaders are likely raising their eyebrows, wondering if he even knows what day it is, let alone how to handle delicate geopolitical conversations. This isn't an isolated incident either. Remember when he called Apple CEO Tim Cook Tim Apple, like it was his full name? Or how about Nambia, the mysterious country he invented during a meeting with African leaders? These moments might seem trivial, but they build a pattern that doesn't go unnoticed outside the U.S. Experts have pointed out countless times that public speaking flubs like these erode his credibility. And let's be real, if you're negotiating trade deals or discussing security partnerships, the last thing you want is to look unprepared, or worse, clueless. Imagine sitting across the table from a leader who can't even get corporate names right. It's enough to make allies question your competency, and adversaries? Well, they just smell blood. What might seem like a laughable blunder here could quietly crumble trust elsewhere. So yes, Trump's Nissan Nippon mix-up is funny, but it also reveals cracks in his ability to juggle complex, high-stakes situations, which, let's face it, is a key part of being president. Speaking of cracking under pressure, let's talk about that off-the-cuff leadership style. It gets wilder. Trump's leadership style has been described as many things, but well-prepared isn't exactly one of them. Instead, he's become infamous for his habit of winging it, relying more on improvisation than actual preparation. A perfect example of this? His baffling confusion over Pete Hegseth's role in the Department of Defense. Hegseth, who wasn't even part of the DoD, somehow became a focal point of Trump's rambling speech, leaving people wondering if he even knew who worked for him. Moments like these aren't just embarrassing. They spotlight a leadership approach that seems allergic to doing any homework. This play-it-by-ear method might work if you're hosting a reality TV show, but in high-stakes situations, it's a different story. Foreign policy, for example, leaves zero room for error, yet Trump consistently treated it like improv night. Take his tariff decisions as an example. He placed tariffs on major economies like China and the EU, only to pause them without securing any real concessions. It was like issuing fines and then handing out refunds before anyone complained. His hesitation on sanctions against Russia also stood out. He'd make tough claims, then backtrack without committing to action. These inconsistencies not only muddied the waters, but also made him appear unreliable to both allies and adversaries. Supporters might argue this unscripted style gives Trump a certain charisma, like that guy who shows up to a party with no plan but somehow becomes the center of attention. But critics say it's reckless and dangerous, especially when lives and global stability are at stake. Experts have pointed out that his lack of preparation wasn't just a quirk, it had real consequences, undermining trust in the U.S. on an international level. According to analysts, this approach signaled a lack of clear strategy, which only made America's leadership seem less credible. These patterns don't exist in a vacuum. From public gaffes to last-minute decisions, Trump's off-the-cuff persona seems less like an asset and more like a liability. But what does this mean for how we evaluate leadership in the future? Let's break that down. Even a mistake as small as calling Nippon Steel Nissan can snowball when the stakes are global. It's not just entertaining Twitter fodder. It chips away at a president's credibility on the world stage, making allies hesitant and adversaries bolder. Now, think bigger. What happens when leadership prioritizes spectacle over substance? Can a country thrive when its figurehead fumbles details that matter? These aren't trivial questions. They're pressing concerns about how America's role is viewed worldwide. If mistakes like these are so dangerous, how can future leaders steer clear of the same pitfalls? That's something worth thinking about, isn't it?